Hello and welcome to official Xbox 360 Magazine's OXM Report, and this week we're talking to the team behind Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City, which takes the location from Resi 2 and 3 and turns it into a 4-player co-op squad-based shooter. So I'm here with Adam Bullied, who's the creative director on Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City. This isn't your conventional Resident Evil game. Tell me about what you're doing.
Well, basically Capcom talked to a number of developers in the West, including us, and just basically said, pitch us an idea for a Resident Evil game. And they obviously weren't looking for somebody to make a conventional, Japanese survival horror game. And we just kind of had this series of pitches and dialogues that were more or less us just brainstorming. And they said, yeah, we like that pitch, that's a cool idea, pitch us something else. And it was more just us sort of playing around and coming up with ideas, and we took ideas from various games, and it sort of turned in this really neat sort of organic process into the game that we have now, into Operation Raccoon City.
So I'm here with Andrew Santos, who's the lead designer on Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City. So tell me about the game. This is quite a departure for the series, right?
It is a departure because we're actually putting the players for the first time in charge of the USS characters in the middle of an outbreak. So they are, essentially fighting. It's basically a team versus the city, as opposed to what happened before in Resident Evil, which usually one character versus the BOW or zombie that they come across.
Now, characters in this game are kind of your domain. Tell me what you're trying to achieve with the characters in the game.
Well, the basic idea of this game was that, we're really attaching a group of characters to Resident Evil sort of 15 years after the fact. So what was really important was that these feel like Resident Evil characters. And because they're going to intersect with the events of the original Outbreak, and they're going to meet those original heroes and villains, we wanted them to feel like they belong there and that they were a natural part of the Resident Evil universe. So, when I was designing the characters, I have a way I like to design characters, and I have the kind of characters I like. Capcom has a way, obviously, that they design characters. And they didn't ever say to me, this is how to make a Capcom character. They just said, give us some characters, give us something. And actually, those are the characters that are in the game. It turned out that their process and the process that we had really segged nicely together. And so from there, the characters just kind of grew. The basic idea was that, you should play this game and feel like, oh, if I'd gone, when I was playing Resident Evil 2, if I'd gone through a different doorway, or if I'd come to this location 5 minutes later, I would have run into these characters then. I'm only running into them now, right? But that was the goal, that was the aim, was that feels like they were always in the game. They were always in Resident Evil.
In terms of Raccoon City, the Resident Evil 2, for example, takes you on quite a linear path. Do you think there was a lot of call from fans to be able to explore more of the city and make it a more coherent place?
Yeah, I think so. As I said earlier, basically what we're trying to do is actually flesh out Raccoon City a bit more. So you get to see things like the Stagler gas station, the RPD, and other landmark locations actually in a map that is a lot larger than we've had before, because we're doing a team-based multiplayer third-person shooter, so we have to make more space for that sort of gameplay. So it is a little larger, and I think the fans will be happy to see that Slant 6 is working with Capcom Games to really flesh out Raccoon City that much more.
Is it going to be tough to maintain a sort of Resident Evil atmosphere when you've got 3 buddies making rude jokes over Xbox Live chat? That sort of thing.
That's a good question. I think the pillars of Resident Evil are it's dark, it's scary, it's survival horror. So we want to keep some of those moments in the game, but there is a realization that in a multiplayer game you do really have more clear objectives, so you are going to be fighting towards them. But at the same time, this game has to appeal to Resident Evil fans. So I'm sure we can think of some scares that's going to affect 4 players as opposed to 1, for example.
In terms of the existing characters from the game, it sounds like you're going to have a pretty big impact on their stories. Tell me about how that works.
Well, again, you know, we're not changing the Resident Evil canon and we're not changing the Resident Evil storyline. We're trying to intersect with it at those moments where maybe those characters weren't on screen, or like, for instance, in some of the games, you play Claire and then you play Leon. So in a lot of cases, this is what happened to Leon when you were playing Claire. We're not trying to change the characters. More, it's a fan service. You should run into them and go, oh, that's where Leon was, or that's what happened here or there. So this is an addition to the storyline, and there's some salacious details. There's some things that you didn't know happened that you'll find interesting, but we're not changing the storyline. We're working in with it, and Capcom has retold the story of the Outbreak a number of different times. We're retelling it from a different point of view.
For all the exclusive details on Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City, check out the latest copy of OXM on shop shelves now.